I was born with a dual personality. Most of the time, I'm the easy kind of girl. Quiet, polite, the one who says sorry when someone bumps into me. The one who keeps her voice soft, keeps her hands folded, keeps the peace even when it costs her. But 3 drinks in, I don't stay that girl. 3 drinks in, something else steps forward. And I only learned what that meant when I was 7 years old. It was my Aunt Marissa's wedding. Backyard tents, fairy lights, paper plates, adults laughing too loud like they were trying to prove they were happy. No one was watching the kids. No one was watching me. I was curious. I was small. I wanted to feel grown. So, I sneaked 3 glasses of sweet wine from a table where nobody noticed a child reaching up. At first, it tasted like sugar and freedom. Then my memory snapped. Just gone. Like someone took a scissors to my life and cut a clean black hole through it. When I woke up, my hands were stained and sticky, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. And something terrible had happened nearby. Something so wrong my brain tried to reject it the way you reject a nightmare after you wake up. The adults were screaming. My mom was shaking so hard she couldn't stand. My dad looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And the fear in their faces wasn't the normal fear parents have when a kid breaks something. It was primal. It was the kind of fear you see right before an accident. They dragged me into a room, locked the door, and my father grabbed my shoulders so tight it hurt. Anna, he said, voice cracking. You will never touch alcohol again. Do you hear me? Never. Not a sip. Not a drop. My mother sobbed so hard she could barely breathe. We can't go through that again. She choked out. Promise me you'll never drink again. I didn't understand why it was so serious yet. But I understood fear. So I promised. And after that, my life became a long list of rules designed to keep me safe from myself. Doctors used careful words. Therapists used gentle tones. My parents kept files and dates and notes like they were trying to build a fence tall enough to hold back a storm. Eventually, the truth became simple. If I didn't drink, I was normal. If I drank too much, I wasn't. So I built my whole identity around refusing alcohol. At school dances, I held Sprite in a red cup. At college parties, I laughed and said, I'm allergic. At office happy hours, I raised a glass of sparkling water and let people think I was boring. I didn't care. Boring meant safe. Safe meant I stayed in control. Then I met Ethan Carter. Ethan was the kind of guy who knew how to make you feel chosen. He had that confident, charming energy, well-dressed, quick smile, smooth voice, the kind of man who could walk into a room and immediately look like he belonged there. And for 3 years, he respected my one rule. If someone offered me a shot, Ethan would slide it away like it was nothing and say, she doesn't drink. If someone teased me for being uptight, he'd put an arm around me and smile like he was proud. My fiancé's allergic, he'd say, I'll drink hers. Fiancé. That word still felt unreal when I said yes to his proposal. It wasn't a massive gesture, no stadium screen, no flash mob, just a quiet dinner, a ring, and Ethan looking at me like I was the center of his future. I believed him. I believed that the man who protected my boundary would always protect me. So when Ethan threw a birthday party for himself in Los Angeles, one of those rented hillside homes with glass walls, a pool that glowed neon blue, and a view that made the city look like spilled diamonds, I didn't worry. I wore a dark green dress. I curled my hair. I practiced my smile in the mirror. I told myself, it's just a party. Then Felicity Lane showed up. Felicity was Ethan's childhood sweetheart, which was how people described her. Even though she wasn't his ex on paper, she was just always there. Always in his memories, always in his jokes, always in the stories he told like they were harmless. She walked in like she owned the air. Perfect makeup, glossy hair, soft laugh, expensive perfume. The kind of girl who didn't need to say, I'm important. Because her whole existence screamed it. She hugged Ethan for a little too long. Then she turned to me with wide eyes and a smile that looked sweet until you stared at it long enough. Anna, she said like we were friends. Happy birthday to Ethan. I'm so glad you made it. Like I had a choice. I stayed polite. I stayed calm. I stayed Anna. The music was loud. People were filming stories for Instagram. Someone was popping champagne near the kitchen island. Ethan's coworkers were laughing in a tight circle. Half business networking, half party. Then Felicity lifted a glass. Everyone, she called, voice trembling just a little like she'd practiced in private. A toast. The room turned. All eyes on me. Felicity looked at Ethan, eyes shiny. Ethan, she said. You deserve the best. And I'm so happy you found someone. Her gaze slid to me. Who makes you happy? Applause. And then she extended the glass toward me. Anna, she said softly. Cheers. My stomach clenched. I shook my head with a polite smile. I can't. I'm allergic to alcohol. Felicity blinked. Then her eyes filled with tears like a faucet turning on. Ethan, she whispered loud enough for people to hear. I told you. She doesn't like me. My pulse spiked. Here we go. Felicity's voice wobbled. I'm trying so hard, and she's acting like I'm trash. What did I do wrong? The room shifted, awkward, curious, entertained. Ethan sighed like I was ruining his evening. Felicity is making a toast, he said, already impatient. It's my birthday. It's a drink. Will it kill you? I really can't, I said quietly. Ethan. He didn't let me finish. His hand came up, fingers closing around my chin. Firm, controlling, my breath caught. Be good, he murmured, smiling for everyone. Just this once. Then he lifted the glass and tipped it toward my mouth. I tried to turn my head away. He held me still. The liquor hit my tongue like fire. Not wine, not champagne, something strong. Something that burned all the way down like it was scraping my throat on the way. I coughed, eyes watering. Ethan leaned close and whispered, still smiling like this was affectionate. Punishment, he said. 3, then apologized to Felicity. The room laughed. Nervous little laughs, the kind people make when they don't want to get involved. My hands started shaking. I swallowed hard, trying to keep myself grounded, trying to stay lucid because I knew what came after 3. I knew what waited behind that door in my head. I really can't drink. I rasped. Something bad will happen. Felicity sniffled, looking hurt. Ethan, I told you. She doesn't welcome me. I should just go. Ethan immediately turned soft for her. No, he said, pulling her close. You're not going anywhere. Then he looked back at me, and the softness disappeared. His eyes were thin with anger. Anna, he said, boy slow. Why do you always have to be difficult? Difficult, like my boundary was a personality flaw. I swallowed, tasting bitterness and alcohol. I smiled because that's what I trained myself to do. But inside, something cracked. Once upon a time, Ethan would block every drink for me. I remembered him squeezing my hand under the table at dinners, calm and steady, and saying, she can't drink. I'll take it. I remembered feeling safe now. He was the one forcing it. A buzzing sound filled my head, not like dizziness, like awareness, like a pair of eyes slowly opening in the dark. I stood up too fast. My knees wobbled. I turned and walked toward the hallway bathroom, trying not to stumble, trying not to show panic. Cold water. I need cold water. I need to stay awake. I locked myself inside and gripped the sink, breathing hard. Not tonight, I whispered to my reflection. Not tonight, please. The door clicked. I whipped around. Felicity stood there, arms crossed, smiling like a winner. Pathetic, she said. Didn't you say you're allergic? You seem fine. Her tone dripped with mockery. My hands curled into fists. The alcohol was too strong. It was sinking in fast. I could feel that line inside me tightening like a rope about to snap. Get out. I forced out through clenched teeth. Felicity didn't move. Instead, she stepped closer, voice dropping. You really don't know, do you? She said. Ethan and I set tonight up just for you. My blood turned cold. You're drinking whether you like it or not, Felicity continued, smiling. Because Ethan is going to get you drunk and hand you off. Hand me off like I was a coat, like I was a favor, like I was nothing. I snapped my head up, eyes wide. Impossible. Ethan and I had been together 3 years. We were engaged. I couldn't. My brain refused. But the moment I walked out of the bathroom, Ethan was there in the hallway with a glass in his hand and a face like stone. 2 more, he said, shoving the drink toward me. Drink. Apologize. We're not doing this tonight. My heart sank. I looked past him toward the front door. I took a step. He shifted to block me. I rushed anyway, grabbed the handle, twisted. Locked. My breath caught. I turned slowly. Open the door, I said, voice shaking. I'm leaving. Ethan walked toward me, steady, calm, terrifying. He raised the glass slightly, like he was offering peace. Anna, he said, show some class. You haven't finished your apology drinks. Where are you going? My voice came out sharp, almost a growl. Open the door. Ethan's mouth twitched. If you force me to drink, I said, you won't be able to handle the consequences. He laughed under his breath. Who are you scaring? He said, you always claim you're allergic, but look, you drank 1 and nothing happened. 2 more and we're done. Behind him, his buddies chimed in like a chorus. Come on, it's LA. Everyone drinks. Don't be dramatic. Felicity stood near the kitchen, smirking like she'd already won. I swallowed and stared straight at Ethan. Felicity told me you're going to get me drunk and hand me off. I said, voice shaking. And now you've locked the door, and you're forcing me. Explain. Ethan's face changed instantly. Not shock, not denial, annoyance. He shot Felicity a look, sharp and disapproving. Felicity, he hissed. Why would you tell her before? Felicity shrugged, totally unbothered. Ethan, what are you afraid of? She can't leave it anyway. My head buzzed. A white flash of panic split behind my eyes. My voice trembled. Ethan, I whispered. Are you really doing this? I'm your fiancé. Ethan's jaw tightened like he was tired of pretending. Listen, he said, lowering his voice. Felicity wants to break into film. There's a producer who can make it happen. He's willing to put her in a project, but he wants a private meeting. My stomach dropped. Ethan kept talking like he was explaining a business deal. He likes your look, he said. That innocent vibe. It's what he's into. I stared at him, stunned. My brain lagging behind the words. Ethan leaned closer like he was comforting me. Don't worry, he said. It's just one night. And after that, our wedding is still on. I'm not going to hold it against you. Hold it against me. Like I was doing something wrong. Like I was the one betraying him. I watched his mouth move, dazed. Was this the man who once got into a fight with a guy outside a bar for calling me names? Was this the man who promised me I'd always be safe with him? What changed? I whispered, voice cracking. Why does everything change the moment she shows up? Ethan's face tightened with impatience. Felicity is like family, he snapped. I've known her my whole life. Then he looked at me like I was an object he owned. You're my woman, he said. So you help me. You help her. Help. That's what he called it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice into that fake soft tone. I know you wouldn't agree if you were sober, he said. So we're not giving you a choice. My breath shook. Tears spilled hot and fast, but my skin felt cold. No. Y whisperat. No, you're not. Ethan grabbed my hand like he used to, dragging me toward him. For half a second, my body reacted out of habit, like it wanted to believe his touch meant safety. Then his fingers closed around my chin again hard, and he poured the second drink toward my mouth. I gagged. My eyes flooded. I tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. Relax, he murmured. It'll be over soon. The buzzing in my head got louder. Like that door inside me was shaking, like something on the other side was smiling. When the glass was empty, I stumbled back, coughing, tears streaming. No more. I choked out. If I drink again, Ethan cut me off. One more, he said. I stared at him, shaking. We're done, I whispered. Unlock the door. Let me go, Felicity laughed, eyes full of contempt. Ethan, she said lightly. Anna's really losing it. Acting like she's some scary movie. Then she smiled at me. Sweet as poison. My future depends on you, she said. Be a good sister-in-law. My heart felt like it was being sliced open. Because the first night I'd ever wanted. My dream was supposed to be my wedding night with Ethan. Not this. Not being cornered in a stranger's house, surrounded by people treating me like a commodity. The doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Felicity lit up like a stage light. He's here, she breathed. Ethan straightened instantly, posture turning professional. A man stepped into the house. Not tall. Not impressive at first glance, but he walked like he was used to people moving out of his way. His hairline was thin. His smile was confident. His eyes were the kind that looked at you like you were a product on a shelf. Two men lingered behind him. Security or friends or both. Ethan, the man said, shaking his hand. You said you had something special for me. Ethan forced a smile. Mr. Mercer. Glad you came. Mr. Mercer's gaze slid over me and lingered. Is that her? He asked casually. Ethan nodded. That's Anna, my fiancée. Mr. Mercer smiled wider. You're really willing, he said, amused. Ethan swallowed. We had a deal. Mr. Mercer's eyes flicked toward Felicity. And you're the girl, he said. The one who wants the part. Felicity stepped forward, all innocence. Yes, sir. I'm so grateful. Mr. Mercer barely acknowledged her. His attention went back to me. Is she cooperative? He asked Ethan. Ethan's grip tightened on my wrist. She will be, he said. I tried to step back. Ethan pulled me forward. My voice came out thin, shaking. Stop, I whispered. Ethan, please. Ethan leaned in close, smiling like a loving fiancé while his words stabbed. Don't embarrass me, he whispered. Just get through it. Mr. Mercer frowned slightly. I don't like drama, he said. Ethan nodded quickly. No drama. Then Ethan reached for another drink. My whole body went rigid. Ethan, I said, voice trembling. I'm warning you. He didn't even look at me like I was human. He lifted the glass. Last one, he said. Felicity's eyes glittered with relief. Mr. Mercer watched like he was waiting for a package to be unwrapped. My mind spun. The buzzing became a roar. I could feel the line inside me unraveling. I could feel her pressing forward. And then something inside me went very still. Not fear, not panic, stillness, like a lake freezing over. I looked at Ethan and I smiled. It wasn't my usual polite smile. It was slow, sharp, wrong. Ethan hesitated, confused for half a second. I took the bottle from his hand. He let me because Anna would never do that. I lifted it and I drank. Not a sip, not a reluctant swallow. I finished the whole thing. The alcohol hit my body like gasoline. My skin burned. My heartbeat steadied. My tears stopped. Ethan's surprise faded into satisfaction. There you go, he said. That's better. Felicity giggled, lightning. Thought she was so pure. Mr. Mercer stepped closer, reaching toward me. I tilted my head, and my voice came out calm, almost amused. Should have unlocked the door, I said softly. Even blinked. What did you say? I looked at him like he was something stuck to my shoe. You people, I murmured, are so confident when you think a girl can't fight back. The next moments moved fast, not like a movie, like a storm. Mr. Mercer reached for me again. I moved. Ethan lunged to grab my wrist. I slipped out of his grip so cleanly he froze. Felicity squeaked and stepped back. Someone cursed. A glass shattered. In the chaos, I saw what they didn't. Angles, distances, exits, and the men behind Mr. Mercer. Security hesitated, suddenly unsure, because this wasn't going according to the plan where the girl cried and gave up. This plan had a different girl now. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't waste breath trying to convince wolves to grow empathy. I moved through them like cold intent. And within minutes, Mr. Mercer wasn't smiling anymore. He was on the floor, red-faced, panicking, tangled up, and pinned in a way that made him look less like a powerful producer, and more like a man who'd finally run into a consequence he couldn't buy his way out of. Ethan rushed into the hallway, face twisted with fury. Anna, he shouted. What the hell are you doing? I looked at him. My eyes felt different. My smile felt different. Ethan's anger faltered for a fraction of a second because he could tell. Something was off. Something wasn't me. Felicity stood behind him, shaking, trying to keep her voice steady. Oh my God, she gasped. Ethan, what is she? Mr. Mercer barked, frantic. Get her away from me. Are you insane? I'm calling my lawyer. Felicity fumbled for her phone with trembling hands. She tried to call. Nothing. No service. Her phone chirped. Her face went white because they'd blocked the signal. So I couldn't call for help. And now neither could they. Felicity ran for the front door, yanking the handle, sobbing. Locked. She slammed her palm against it, voice rising. Help. Somebody help. Ethan stepped toward me again, but his voice lost its arrogance. It sounded scared, Anna, he said, swallowing. Stop. We can talk. We can fix this. Fix like it was a misunderstanding. Like he hadn't just tried to trade me. I tilted my head, studying him. Then I leaned in slightly, voice quiet. You should be scared, I said. Ethan's eyes widened. Anna, he whispered. I smiled. Anna tried to warn you. I murmured. You didn't listen. Ethan shook his head, breathing fast. No, he said. No, you're what? I spoke like I was introducing myself. She's the polite one, I said softly. She's the one you called dramatic. She's the one who begged. She's the one you thought you could control. I took a step closer and Ethan backed up without meaning to. And on what happens, I whispered. When you push her too far. Ethan's face twisted into horror. Felicity slid down the wall, sobbing. Real sobs now, not performance. This isn't funny, she whimpered. This isn't funny. Mr. Mercer tried to look angry, but it came out as panic. You're going to regret this. He snapped weakly. You have no idea who I am. I looked down at him calmly. Oh, I said almost kindly. I think you've spent your whole life assuming girls don't get to say no. Then I straightened and turned my gaze toward Ethan and Felicity. Ethan's voice broke. It was her idea. He blurted, pointing at Felicity like a coward on instinct. She pushed me into it. She said it would be fine. She said you'd Ethan. Felicity shrieked through tears. You promised. Ethan snapped, panic turning to rage. You said I had to prove I cared. You said you needed this role. Felicity sobbed harder. I'm tired of being nobody. She screamed. I'm tired of watching other girls get everything. And there it was. The truth. They weren't lovers. They were partners using me as a stepping stone. My smile widened slightly. Love that. I murmured. Now say it louder. A crash sounded somewhere outside like a neighbor reacting to the noise. The party wasn't music anymore. It was chaos. And eventually, the world did what it always does when rich people make a mess. It called the cops. Red and blue lights washed across the glass walls. Shouting commands, footsteps. Ethan's face drained as reality hit him. Felicity started crying harder, scrambling backward like she could rewind time. And then black, a hard cut, a clean missing page. When I opened my eyes again, the ceiling above me was fluorescent white. My wrists were cold metal cuffs. I blinked slowly, mouth dry, head pounding like someone had filled it with sand and broken glass. Across the table, a detective sat with a serious face and a notepad. Anna Carter, she said calmly. Do you know where you are? I swallowed. Police station, I rasped. She nodded. 3 people ended up in the hospital tonight. They're alive. But they're claiming you attacked them for no reason. My brain felt empty. I looked down. My dress was wrinkled. My hands were scraped. There was a smear of something dark on my sleeve I couldn't place. And I didn't remember the middle. I didn't remember what I did, but I remembered enough to know why it happened. So I whispered almost to myself. Thank you. The detective frowned. Thank you. My voice shook. They're alive, I said. That means she didn't. The detective leaned in slightly. Who is she, Anna? Before I could answer, the door opened and my parents rushed in. My mother looked like she'd aged 10 years in one night. My father's hands were shaking. My mom's eyes filled the moment she saw me. The detective stood. Professional but not cruel. Your daughter has a right to counsel, she said. But I also need the truth. My father's voice cracked. She has a condition, he said quickly. We have medical records. Evaluations. This started when she was a child. My mother wiped her face trying to stay upright. She doesn't drink, she whispered. She never drinks. She's normal when she doesn't drink. Please. The detective's eyes stayed sharp. We'll verify, she said. But we also need to understand what led up to tonight. And that's when I remembered something. My phone, my pocket. My hands fumbled weakly, and I looked at my parents, voice trembling. I recorded, I whispered. I recorded. Because somewhere deep inside, the part of me that was always afraid had done the one smart thing it could. When I'd walked out of the bathroom at the party, terrified, shaky, I'd hit record and shove my phone into my jacket pocket. Not to be dramatic, to have proof, because I knew nobody believed girls when they said I can't. The story didn't just stay in the station. It exploded online because in Los Angeles, the truth is always fighting the first headline. At first, the internet went after me. Unstable fiancé attacks producer at private party. Jealous bride to be snaps on rising actress. Mentally ill woman escapes consequences again. Felicity posted hospital selfies with perfect lighting and trembling captions about trauma. Ethan did a clean, controlled statement about being blindsided. And Mr. Mercer's team pushed the narrative hard. I was violent, unstable, dangerous. My parents' small business got review bombed overnight. Strangers showed up outside our house. People spit words like knives. Then the video came out. Not leaked by Ethan, not leaked by Felicity, released by my attorney with my parents' permission, and the detective's approval because the truth was already being buried alive. The clip started shaky. Me stepping out of the bathroom, voice raw. But the audio was clear. Clear enough to hear Ethan forcing me to drink. Clear enough to hear Felicity admitting it was a setup. Clear enough to hear the door was locked. Clear enough to hear me saying again and again, I can't drink. This will end badly, let me leave. And clear enough to hear Ethan's voice, cold and casual, saying 2 more. The internet stopped laughing. Then it started burning because the truth didn't just flip sympathy, it flipped rage. Reporters who had been screaming questions at my parents went silent. Comment sections that had been calling me a monster started calling Ethan a predator in a suit. People dug into Mr. Mercer's background and found whispers, old posts, quiet warnings, industry rumors that had been ignored because powerful men always get protected by silence. Women started speaking up. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to make the story too big to bury. And when Felicity tried to pivot into being a victim again, the internet pulled her apart with her own words. Because she wasn't an innocent girl. She was the one who smiled while I cried. She was the one who called my body a stepping stone. Ethan's company suspended him within 48 hours. By the end of the week, he was fired. Sponsors dropped Felicity like she was radioactive. Mr. Mercer's name started trending for all the wrong reasons. And suddenly, his connections weren't saving him. They were running away from him. Then law enforcement moved. Not because the internet was loud, because the evidence was finally undeniable. The detective called me back in, expression tight. Anna, she said. We've reviewed the recording. We've corroborated key parts. They locked you in. They forced alcohol. They intended to coerce you into something you didn't consent to. My throat tightened. I looked down, hands trembling. And the thing inside you? She asked carefully. The thing you said you don't remember? I swallowed, voice quiet. It shows up when I drink. I admit it. And I don't. I don't control what happens in between. The detective nodded slowly. Then you did what you could, she said. You warned them. You tried to leave. You recorded. You asked for help. And for the first time since that night, I felt something unclench inside my chest. Because for once, someone believed me. When the police finally escorted Ethan, Felicity, and Mr. Mercer out for questioning under new charges, cameras caught their faces. Ethan looked smaller without his confidence. Felicity looked wrecked without her script. Mr. Mercer looked furious that consequences had the audacity to touch him. My mother wrapped her arms around me, cried into my hair. My father held us both, shaking, and I stood there staring at the flashing lights, feeling hollow and steady at the same time because I didn't win. Not really. I didn't get my old life back. I didn't get 3 years back. I didn't get the version of Ethan I thought existed, but I got something else. I got the truth on record. I got their masks ripped off. I got the world to see what happens when a woman says no and a man hears convince her. And I got one final lesson carved into me so deep I'll never forget it. My kindness was never weakness. It was restraint. And the moment they mistook it for permission, they met the part of me that doesn't ask twice.